Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
He is Chris Stigall. Chris Stigall.
I'm joined now by Chris Stigall,
host of the Chris Stigall Show.
So let's bring in talk radio host Chris Stigall.
Also, his podcast is a must-listen every day. Chris Stigall Show podcast.
And host of the Chris Stigall Show.
Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
Please welcome Chris Stigall.
The Chris Stigall podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
Hey there, how you doing? Thanks a lot for downloading the Chris Stigall Show podcast. Always appreciate your 5-star reviews. If you get the time, I know it's an inconvenience, but if you ever get the time to scroll down to the bottom of the menu of shows at Apple Podcasts and leave a written review and a 5-star review, that helps advance our goals and our show more than anything else. Or that 5-star review at Spotify. Grateful that you listen. I should also remind you that if you ever want to watch the video version of this for any reason, when YouTube allows it, we're on YouTube. And also you can check out the show on Rumble every day because that's where free speech lives all the time. So there is a video version of this for those of you that only listen to the audio, rumble.com and YouTube. It's all linked at chrisstigall.com. There's also a link and another video to watch about our title sponsor, John Ruhlman, and usmedicalplan.com, the guy that makes health insurance as affordable as he can possibly find it for you, but still covers you well. You know, the thing is, people ask me all the time, Chris, if I call John and he gives me a cheaper rate, does that mean I'm going to get cut rate insurance? No, not at all. John will shop with 80 different private health insurers that he has access to. He'll run the numbers on your current insurance plan. Maybe you've already got the best insurance out there for you. It could be. He'll tell you if so. But the goal is to, number one, find you a more affordable price tag on insurance. If it exists, it's probably like 30 to 60% cheaper out there. That's generally what he saves people. I mean, I know people that have saved thousands of dollars by making this phone call for their families or themselves as individuals. You know, if you're a senior and you need that supplemental insurance plan to go along with your Medicare, he can cover it. If you're a small business owner and you want to extend insurance benefits to your employees, but it's breaking your budget to afford those premiums to cover your employees, let John go do some work for you. And the great thing is he's an advocate. If you ever have any kind of issues with a doctor's bill or a hospital bill and your insurance, John and his team advocate for you. In fact, they'll jump in right now if you're in the middle embroiled in some kind of thing to help you transition into a new program and do your battles for you. That's what I really love. It's one-stop shopping in a area of our lives that's often very bureaucratic and time-consuming. John tries to make this as easy, affordable, and trouble and worry-free as he can. usmedicalplan.com, usmedicalplan.com, or 877-410-4321. Midweek edition of the show. I welcome you in. Hope you're doing well. Listen fast. There is plenty happening. It seems like it is a fire hydrant. It never shuts off. Somebody asked me the other day, interesting times. I said, yeah, and they're going to be. Just about every day, certainly every week, without stop. 7 days a week, round the clock, straight through November, and probably beyond. So it's incumbent upon you not to miss a minute, because we're all over it. And I told you what was going to happen yesterday before it happened. Mere hours after the show was put to bed yesterday, I told you the very first and only moment of accountability, I put that in air quotes, that has come from the Biden administration. Kimberly Cheadle, the director of the Secret Service, has announced she is resigning. She's stepping down. And I told you why. I told you because the Democrats joining in solidarity and in seriousness with the Republicans, issuing a joint letter in a very solemn hearing Monday, calling on this woman to step down. She did not do her job adequately, and they were all taking the security of public officials here in the United States very seriously. I said, why, when, have you ever seen Democrats join with Republicans who run a committee, ever, for any reason? Why? Have you ever seen? Well, Chris, it's because it's so serious. This is deadly serious times. I mean, we had a president almost killed. This is security for both parties. This is security for all of our high-profile. As I said, they're sorry Trump's not dead. They're sorry it didn't work. And what they do not want and what they cannot have is a lot of scrutiny of this event, which, by the way, there is more footage and more body cam footage coming to light about this day, and it's looking worse and worse and worse. You're starting to overhear Secret Service on body cam footage talking about the guy they spotted and knew was there. You're starting to see more rally goers who knew this guy was there, saw him shouting. There's a guy on the roof with a gun. Hello? Like people with their cell phones. It's devastating. He was allowed to nearly kill Donald Trump. This 20-year-old man was nearly allowed, and that's the only word, as I said yesterday, that is the key word. The man was allowed to do this. We can go down the rabbit hole of conspiracy or plots, but he was allowed to do it. Who allowed it and why? Now, you can start filling in those blanks and drive yourself crazy if you'd like. I'm not here to do that today because I don't have the evidence. So I could do a show full of conspiracy. I choose to not. There's plenty of other people doing that if that's what you're hungry for. But I'll say this. The man was allowed to shoot at Donald Trump, clearly, freely, from 130 yards. It's unprecedented. It's not done. I mean, a child could protect Donald Trump's perimeter of a rally better than this. So it was tolerated. It was allowed. And Kimberly Cheadle is the head of the Secret Service. And as such, somebody's head had to roll because once they didn't successfully kill him, people were going to start digging into what happened. How is it allowed? If Donald Trump, I hate saying this because it's really morbid, and I'm sorry. I don't mean to keep saying it this way, but I kind of have to make the point. If Donald Trump were killed that day, do you think we would be discussing who's responsible for allowing it to happen? Seriously, like at this hour right now, think about that. That was over a week ago. So we would be into week number 2. What would we be discussing right now, realistically, if they had effectively killed Donald Trump? Do you ever stop and, maybe you don't allow yourself to go to that dark place, but do you ever stop for a minute and imagine, what if he'd been killed that day, Fast Eddie? Does that ever go through your mind?
It does. I don't know for the same reasons, but yes, I was scared.
Yeah, but I mean, if he were dead, what then? Well, I actually, we've talked about this before. I fear for what the country would become. I think it was Ed Morrissey who said it yesterday on the show, and I agree with him. We talk about how providential it was that this bullet just grazed his ear. True. Was it to save Donald Trump's life? Yes. But was it to save the country? Yes. Would the country have deteriorated and dissolved into something really ugly? I believe so. I'm not entirely sure I know what that is. I can't know. I can only forecast it, but I think if everybody's just kind of quiet with their thoughts for a minute, you could imagine what this country would become if Donald Trump were killed. And I hate imagining it because it's a dark place. So beyond that, and let's even assume, best case, everybody's just shocked. Okay, then what? What does the news cycle move into? Who's going to replace him, right? I mean, you still got to have a presidential election this fall. So we would move into who the Republican's going to pick to replace him. There would be a fight inside the Republican Party while people are mad and grieving. The Republican Party, what I would argue, fall apart completely because why? I think a lot of Republican and Trump voters would probably come to the conclusion that many inside the GOP were probably part of the attempt. I think it would drive Trump voters into a place from which they'd never return politically. I'm serious. I think people, millions of people in this country would check out forever. And I think that's exactly what they hoped would happen. I think they hoped it would create mass chaos, depression, despair, anger, violence. But certainly, if they were successful in killing Donald Trump, it would distract you and me from discussing them at all. Accountability, it wouldn't be a discussion. Do you think we'd be having House hearings yesterday with Kimberly Cheadle if he were dead? Fast Eddie?
No, of course not.
No, there wouldn't be any discussion like this. So here's what happened, and I'm straight up, I'm just going to tell you the truth. They weren't successful in killing the man, and somebody, for the first time in 3.5 years of this disastrous, disgusting, purposefully destructive administration, in 3.5 years of the ruin that we've been watching, someone got fired. Someone resigned. Isn't that strange? Who else has stepped down? Has there been another Biden official in 3.5 years that stepped down? Can you think of one? All the things that we've covered, all the failures. I mean, we had a defense secretary that just vanished for, weeks? Didn't tell anybody? Did he take any accountability? Mayorkas, the border, Mayor Pete, and the transportation failures, supply chain, East Palestine. I mean, we could go down the list. Certainly not the border, because the woman in charge of the border has now been made their nominee. There's been no accountability from the Biden administration. And so I told you yesterday, isn't it strange that the Democrats are all screaming accountability now in solidarity with the Republicans? And I said she's going to step down. She's going to step down because they hope this story goes away. They do not want to talk about what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania that day anymore. Well, that's it. We got rid of the woman responsible for all of this. I think we can now all move on and agree that going forward, we need smarter procedures in place. And so one of the things that they've decided is Trump should no longer have outdoor rallies. Did you see this? Yes, that is the conclusion of the Secret Service. First of all, this story, Kimberly Cheadle, Secret Service Director, steps down. Miss Cheadle, appointee of President Biden, who served on his detail when he was vice president, announced her resignation in an email to staff. She said she takes full responsibility for the security lapse at the July 13th campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, where Republican candidate Donald Trump was nearly assassinated. Quote, in light of recent events, it is with a heavy heart that I have made the difficult decision to step down as your director. This decision was made some time ago. They needed her to go to Capitol Hill and put on a show. She had to go so that the Democrats could all display their joint concern with Republicans. They had to have that show yesterday. If there were any self-respecting Secret Service director who genuinely felt remorse and responsibility for what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, she would have resigned within a week of that event. She wouldn't have gone to the convention and made herself visible and gone to meet with Donald Trump. They wouldn't have had this House hearing. Everybody hopes that you'll stop talking about this assassination now. That's what they hope. Okay, Cheadle's gone. Is there anything more to discuss, Fast Eddie?
There's plenty more to discuss.
Yeah. Well, she's gone. We fired the woman responsible. What do you want? I mean, look, we did it. Democrats, Republicans, they came together. The woman responsible for it, she's out. So there you go. And now the Secret Service has issued a new demand, encouraging Donald Trump's campaign to stop scheduling large outdoor rallies and other outdoor events with big crowds. So rather than secure Donald Trump rallies, which we've been seeing happen for 7-8 years now, we can't have them anymore because the Secret Service doesn't feel confident they can secure them. Isn't that interesting? How interesting. So these very stunning, visually effective, powerful gatherings of tens of thousands of people in the middle of fields and cities and towns all over the country, those need to stop now because we can't keep them secure anymore, don't you see? Strange. So we're lowering the bar on the Secret Service? Is that it? So we had this big hearing Monday to discover what Kimberly Cheadle's failures were all about. She says, I'm very, very sorry. I resign. And everyone says, well, good. We got our pound of flesh. We got accountability. But, hey, just in case, how about we stop having outdoor rallies? Now, why would they want you to stop having outdoor rallies, do you suppose? Security, Chris, security. Oh, really? You think? Or could it be that the vice president, now the nominee for the Democrat Party, had her first rally in Wisconsin yesterday, and she drew, they report 3,000 people in a school gymnasium? Could it be that they're already setting the table for the rest of the year? They don't want the visual. They don't want the comparison. It's much, much easier to compare arena to arena, gymnasium to gymnasium. But these farm field giant outdoor rallies that Trump holds, they're devastating visually, and they know that cackle britches can't draw flies. And the Biden administration can't draw flies. This artificial thing that they've built now, what a bizarre thing that was yesterday, by the way, which I'll get into in a minute. So she goes and has her big first rally in Wisconsin yesterday, and I'll grant you that it is better than the husk. I mean, I'm not even sure if they don't pay union stooges to come stand out with the husk, nobody shows up at those things. Those were depressing as hell. Okay, so they got 3,000 people at Cackle Britches rally yesterday. Hooray! 3,000 people. Trump could call a rally this afternoon in any town or hamlet across the country and draw 3,000 people today, like giving them an hour notice. So do you think it odd that the Secret Service's conclusion is Trump should stop having his outdoor rallies after 7 years of having them? Is that strange? Is that a weird conclusion? Or are we all supposed to go, oh, well, yes, that's probably smart. I think it's good. Or how about this? We've been doing them successfully, and maybe you secure buildings and places where people can stand on roofs and shoot at the man speaking. Maybe try that. Maybe secure a perimeter. Maybe widen a perimeter. Maybe now that we're down to 2 candidates, and I guess Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is 3, now that we're down to 3 or 4 principal people, do you think maybe we could just beef up the staffs? Do you accept this? Serious question. Do you accept the new terms? In the aftermath of the shooting, agents from the Secret Service communicated their concerns about large outdoor rallies going forward. The people familiar with the matter spoke on the condition of anonymity to describe private discussions. For upcoming events, Trump's team is scouting indoor venues like basketball arenas and other large spaces where thousands of people can fit. The campaign is not currently planning any large outdoor events, a person close to the Trump team says. A Trump campaign spokeswoman declined to comment. Trump has held hundreds of outdoor rallies since launching his first presidential bid, often bragging about his large crowds. They have become something of a cult favorite among his most passionate fans, with tailgate parties in parking lots, vendors lining up, open areas near the rally, and large parades of traffic, gargantuan pickup trucks. Exhibit A, the Wildwood Rally. Wildwood Rally in May was one of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen. It was historic, in fact. 80 minimum to 100,000 people out on the boards. It was unbelievable. One of the most incredible days I've ever seen. On the beach. Huge. Biggest thing I've never seen anything like it. Never. And now the Secret Service comes along and says, we should probably stop doing those. Why? Well, of course, to take away the stunning visual evidence that Donald Trump is, in fact, popular and she, in fact, is not. This is all to fit into a storyline. They are right before our eyes trying to make a showbiz stagecraft tailor-made campaign with cackle bridges that isn't real. None of this is real. I watched this yesterday. I wanted to beat my head against the wall. I felt insane. I really, we talked about this, and I went home and I watched some more news, and I'm listening to this rally yesterday. And Democrats don't irk me anymore. I don't give them that kind of power. I don't really care what they say. That's not what bothers me. What drove me crazy was all the media, everyone, was just covering it like, oh, well, here's a completely normal circumstance that no one should question. What are we doing? How are we here? Do you stop? Do you stop, really? I ask you, do you stop and actually ask yourself what the hell's just happened? Does anyone? Somebody said, Chris, it's not going to do any good whining about it. I said, I'm not whining about it. I'm actually asking, I'm laying down a personal challenge to every man and woman of voting age in this country to just take a breath for 10 seconds. Just stop for a second and consider what we're doing here. Consider what we're talking about. Consider what's happened in not a calendar month. 1 month, not even a month. A guy that we've been pretending has been president all along, who was never capable of doing the job. He was always old. He was always feeble. They hid him. They hid him from view. They never let him answer questions. He never really spoke or gave speeches. And then one day, out of the clear blue sky, he agrees to a late June debate. Not only agrees, challenges it. Yeah, I want a presidential debate, and I want to do it now. Now, you can speculate as to why that was. I absolutely 100% maintain they knew full well they were making the old man walk the plank. I think they got next to him. I think it's elder abuse. I think they said, okay, he's not going. So let's go ahead and let him walk out there and just get bloodied. And they did. That's what they did. They threw him to the wolves. They knew fully that Joe Biden was going to collapse. But the old man is still in denial, and he tells himself he's still 60, and he's, still the sharp debater that he was in the United States Senate. So he confidently strode out there and collapsed. And it was a national embarrassment. And that night in late June, after a presidential debate in late June, hello, I said after a presidential debate in late June, all of his surrogates who have been doing nothing but licking his boots and apologizing for him and explaining why he's the greatest president of all time, all said all at once on the same evening, oh, it's time, he's got to go. I'm getting all these texts from furious and frantic Democrats who are, this is it, this is over, he's got to go. And then came the story of the fundraiser that we all saw. A feeble old man being led off the stage by his former boss. And then George Clooney, who was at that fundraiser, writes a letter and says, I saw him at that fundraiser. It was pretty bad. He for the good of the country, he really should step down. And everybody, all at once, the chorus at one time. Yes, Donald Trump has got to, Joe Biden's got to go. He's old and he's infirm and he's got to go. And the calls grew and the calls grew. And then one random Saturday in Butler, Pennsylvania, pow, pow. A guy 130 yards away on an unguarded building shoots at Donald Trump and, thank God, misses. Kills one man, hits two others, grazes Trump's ear. Donald Trump should have been dead that day. They tried to kill him. It didn't work. Trump has his convention. It's a triumph. No doubt about it. Absolutely, positively, unbelievably successful. Everybody knows it. We come out of the convention. The husk gets COVID. Disappears, vanishes from view for 5 days. After all along saying he's not going anywhere. Then he vanishes, and then a weird letter shows up on social media. Not an official letterhead, just some weird typed letter. And the husk's chicken scratch signature on the bottom. I quit. We never see him. He never says it publicly. No pictures, no visual, no recording. Just a chicken scratch signature on a form letter released on social media. I'm out. The letter does not say he endorses anybody. He just says, I'm getting out. Doesn't tell us why. We don't see him. Don't know where he is. He's got COVID. And then a little bit later, on social media again, oh, yeah, and I endorse Kamala Harris. Oh, my God. Oh, me? Says Cackle Bridges. Me? Oh, I'm so excited. I can't believe it. Really? Me? Little old me? And everybody says, oh, what a patriot Joe Biden is. Good for him. Good for the country. What an amazing. And then in 24 hours, we go from delegates having not pledged to Cackle Bridges and Democrats all splintered and saying, do you think I'm just going to fall in line with this? This is ridiculous. People crying. Joe Biden should stay in. He should hang in there. 24 hours. She gets all her delegates and every Democrat up and down the line in every direction, all saying the same thing. Oh, Kamala Harris is one of us. We love her. Kamala Harris is our leader. Go, Kamala. We can't wait. And then she goes to Wisconsin, and there's 3,000 people wearing Kamala shirts. Woo! Out of their minds with excitement. A woman who didn't get a single vote in their primary 3.5 years ago is now, she's got a crowd in Wisconsin. Woo! Losing their minds over a woman no one in her own party wanted. And everything I just said happened within one effing month. Not even. Do you stop and consider what I just said, Fast Eddie? Do people? Or do they just go, oh, news, new news. And we're just sucking news through a straw so fast that nobody stops and considers how insane it is that we're here.
Chris, I didn't realize that it was less than a month until you just said it, to be perfectly honest.
Because you can't. You don't have time. No one allows you to have time to actually think about what I just laid out. And if you actually stop and process what I just laid out and that it has not been 1 month, you see how completely mind-melded, how engineered, how phony, how doctored, how stage-played this whole thing is. This is nonsense. They nearly murdered the guy that the country is actually excited about, and they are feeding you a bill of goods about a woman no one wants and no one is excited about. You know, we're already being treated to her name being like Oprah or Ellen or Hillary. It's Kamala. What? Who likes this woman? Who supports her? What record of success has she? What evidence suggests anyone wants this woman? Nothing. No one. But everyone uniformly now is talking about her like she is the heir apparent. Ain't no stopping her now. And Donald Trump's got to hold indoor rallies now, by the way. Shouldn't have any more of those outdoor rallies anymore. Damn it. Thought we'd killed him, but all right, we'll try this. No more outdoor rallies. They're going to continue to try to contain this and box in Trump. They couldn't kill him, so they're going to keep trying to frame and box in and dictate the terms. And let me just say something else. There's something else that I want everybody to keep in mind that I don't think anybody's thinking about, and frankly, it just kind of hit me today. Still to come, and it was on purpose that it was punted, and I told you it was on purpose that it was punted. Still to come in September will be the sentencing of Donald Trump. September. Do you think that was an accident? Of course it's not. When I told you that Judge Mershon, 34 counts, New York, they were chanting incidentally yesterday in Milwaukee, lock him up. And she's the prosecutor, right? She's the tough prosecutor. She's the top cop from California who's going to go after that convicted felon, right? You think it's an accident that we pushed the sentencing for Donald Trump to September? You think that's an accident? Of course it's not. You think it was done for some kind of court procedural thing, blah, blah, blah? The hell. No. They haven't been able to bankrupt him. They haven't been able to jail him. They haven't been able to kill him. So they figure by late September, Judge Mershon's going to try to throw one of these, okay, we're sentencing you to, who knows, could it be jail? Probably. I mean, I'd hear it at this point. If you said they were going to try to send him to Rikers, I'd hear it. House arrest for a month or two, take him off the campaign trail for the final month. Could you see it? So they've already told him he can't have outdoor rallies. How about you can't have rallies at all? How about you can't leave your house for the closing month of this campaign while Cackle Bridges gets to run all over the country? How about that? Could you see it? I could. So strap in. These people are ruthless. They are manufacturing every minute of this. Nothing you're watching is real or sincere or true, except their hatred for Donald Trump, their desire to kill him or jail him or break him or all three. And they have not stopped and they will not stop. Dealing with her, look, there are a lot of Democrats, not maybe visual to you, maybe not on cable news this morning, but there are a lot of Democrats, and there's evidence of it, that there are still people out there saying, this isn't right. Why her? There are Democrat donors saying it. There are Democrat activists saying it. Black Lives Matter just said it yesterday. I'll get into that in more detail in a minute. Black Lives Matter just came out and said, excuse me? Why her? Black men in particular do not like this woman. This woman has a record, an abysmal record. And in fact, oddly, I must say, I'm kind of slack-jawed to say this, Pennsylvania Republicans, of all people, were the ones to first lay out a really effective ad hitting Cackle Britches. Hang on, I'll play it for you in just a minute. Hey there, it's Chris, back on the phone with my dentist and friend Bob Spinato at Williamsburg Dental in Broomall, Pennsylvania, just off the Blue Route with new technology. You have not just new associates, but they brought new technology into the business to make it a little easier for patients.
Yeah, it's a very exciting time in dentistry. We have now introduced a three-dimensional x-ray called a CBCT scan in our office. which allows us to diagnose and things earlier for patients. My daughter is placing a lot of implants in the past that referred out. It's now being done in-house. And we also, we've been using dental or computer scanners for taking impressions for crowns for about the last 2 to 3 years. We now have introduced the next step, which is a milling machine, and we can now make crowns in the office. Things can be completed in the same day as opposed to having a temporary crown put on and 3 weeks later coming back and having a permanent crown put on. It's really a game changer, and it's a time saver for our patients to not have to make multiple visits to the office.
Pick up the phone or go online, make that appointment, 610-353-2700 or williamsburg-dental.com. Jay posted on X, he said, Stigall, that story you just told, if you told that to somebody in a Hollywood room, they'd just throw you right out, say it's too far-fetched, nobody'd buy it. I know. I've said this a few times in the last couple of weeks. If this were a Netflix series, at some point I would just turn it off and go, I can't, this has gotten ridiculous. I mean, the first couple of seasons were interesting, but this is just a little much now. It's like, Man in the High Castle. I loved that show for like a season or two, and then all of a sudden it got weird. Space aliens and all kinds of stuff, and I just couldn't. I was like, oh, man, you just ruined it. This was all kind of very cool, and now you just made it absurd, and I just bailed on it. Couldn't finish. This would be one of those things where if you were watching it on a Netflix show, you'd be like, wow, this is spicy. Great first season. Second season, pretty strong. They did what? What now? They gave him COVID, and he disappeared for 5 days, and they made her the president? What? Nobody'd believe it. Nobody believes that you would take this failed woman that no one supports, no one wanted, and now she is the belle of the ball, the most significant historical, and they're building, you can see it coming. This is Obama. I said to a friend of mine yesterday, I said, don't you feel it? This feels exactly like 2008 all over again. This is Obama McCain all over again. Not that Trump's McCain, don't misunderstand. It's different in that dynamic. I mean, thank goodness we've actually got a real star as a Republican nominee. And also, Cacklebritches has a record. Barack Obama was a blank slate. Nobody knew anything about him. He was a state senator. He'd been elected to the United States Senate in Illinois for like a minute and a half. This woman has a record, and it's a bad one. And we'll get into it in a little bit, but suffice it to say, the story needs to be told quickly and now, before they let this whole airbrushed thing out of the barn that she's Kamala and she's historic and she's a woman and she's black and pitter pat, all our hearts are supposed to go. She's a failed prosecutor. She's a failed attorney general. She's a failed senator. She's a super failed vice president with no accomplishment. There's no evidence that she's particularly bright, to be honest. And Dave McCormick, of all things, I have to tell you, I was delighted. I was sitting around yesterday thinking to myself, okay, Republicans, when are you going to start telling the American people who this person is? Rather than allow these blow-dried, fake, manicured stories about who Cacklebritches is, when are we going to start telling the truth and the stories about who this person is? You cannot let them, the Steven Spielberg Hollywood treatment thing is coming. It's already here. You know, and I don't think there's I saw a study yesterday, refreshingly, that said fans of Taylor Swift, fans of Beyonce, they'll buy their products, they'll buy their concert tickets, they'll buy their albums and all of that stuff. But when it comes to voting the way they're told to vote, there's a huge, huge fall off. People actually, Americans, believe it or not, a majority of Americans, even those who follow left-wing celebrities, the study that I just saw yesterday suggests most people still do not vote the way they're told by celebrities. There's ample evidence to suggest celebrities do not have the kind of outsized influence you think they do. And to Ed Morrissey's point yesterday, look at Hillary Clinton as Exhibit A. Every celebrity in the world came out at the end of the day for that. I mean, they all gathered on Independence Mall. Remember that? Remember Springsteen held his big concert the night before the election on Independence Mall, singing. You know, the working man came out for the billion-dollar Democrats. Mr. Blue Jean, Mr. Denim came out and sang for the billionaire class. Really remarkable. That was the night before the election. Didn't work, did it? Didn't work. Now, I'm not saying this can't work here, and I'm not saying they can't pull an Obama-style manufactured product the way they did with him. Can they do that with her? Maybe. But if explaining who this woman is now often and early. And I mean, everybody ought to have it at their ready. I think this ad, it's actually an ad for Dave McCormick, of all things. And I'm not knocking Dave McCormick. I'm just saying, to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know that the RNC or the Trump people have turned out an ad as fast as the Dave McCormick people have. They tie it to What About Bob Casey. Now remember, What About Bob Casey running for his Senate seat in Pennsylvania. Dave McCormick, his challenger, for those of you listening outside the Commonwealth who don't know. And What About Bob Casey is, I would say, one of the weakest Democrats out there. I think a lot of people are looking at this particular seat as one they're going to try to pick off. Pennsylvania is a particular worry, which also brings in Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania. We'll talk about more of him in a minute. But as I was sitting there yesterday thinking to myself, when are they going to start defining cackle britches? All of a sudden, out of nowhere comes a Dave McCormick ad, Fast Eddie. Were you surprised to see this from the Dave McCormick people first? Not the RNC, not the Trump people, the Dave McCormick people.
I would have been, Chris, except for something that you taught me last week about how the Pennsylvanians were not on board with offloading Biden. They were not big fans of that initially, and they didn't come out immediately to say to do so. In fact, Fetterman over the weekend, he's different now, but said, no, we're sticking with Biden.
Literally 2 weeks ago, not even, Josh Shapiro, John Fetterman, Bob Casey were all three together, slapping backs, standing side by side with the husk. Less than 2 weeks ago. Stop and consider that. All of them showing solidarity with the husk. And now you've got little Joshy, the diminutive pocket-sized governor out there. He's doing TikToks and Instagram reels as fast as he can to make himself look hip. It's just nauseating. He has shown up in my feed now all of a sudden. I don't follow him, and all of a sudden, little Joshy is showing up in my Instagram feed just yesterday. And it's him doing all kinds of cute, hip. I'm cool. Look, It's just so obvious. It's so obvious what's coming. I'm more coming to the conclusion that they're picking him, by the way.
Oh, no.
I'm not predicting it, but I'm coming closer to believing that he's setting himself up to be chosen. He wants to be chosen. He's actively courting it. They are cranking out social media videos of him being cute, dancing around, and doing all the cute, and getting excrement done, all that stuff. It's Anyway,
so
a lot of vanity stuff going on.
So to say that McCormick came out with the first pretty much hit ad against Kamala Harris, tying him to Casey, I understand it. I get it.
Yeah, it's amazing actually, because McCormick feels that the best thing to do is remind people that would vote for What About Bob Casey that this woman that he's now pretending to endorse after riding with Biden all this time, he's now throwing in and saying, "Oh yeah, she's fantastic." This woman has a record. And so interestingly, what Dave McCormick's ad is doing, it's a Bob Casey hit ad, but most of it is actually defining and explaining cackle britches. It's really interesting when you stop and consider it. This is a Senate ad that typically would be a Republican focused in on the Democrat senator who occupies the seat. But actually, it only starts with a clip of What About Bob Casey saying, I like Kamala. And then this entire ad focuses on who she is. Listen to this.
Kamala Harris is inspiring and very capable. The more people get to know her, they're going to be particularly impressed by her ability.
The nonpartisan GovTrack has rated you as the most liberal senator.
I am prepared to get rid of the filibuster to pass a Green New Deal. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
Would you ban offshore drilling?
Yes.
What is the solution for voters in the fossil fuel industry?
Giving the workers an ability to transition. We're not going to treat people who are undocumented and cross the border as criminals. That's correct.
Raise your hand if you think it should be a civil offense rather than a crime to cross the border without documentation.
Abolish ICE. Yeah. Is that a position you agree with?
And we need to probably think about starting from scratch.
Outdated, it is wrong-headed thinking to think that the only way you're going to get communities to be safe is to put more police officers on the street.
Would you support changing the dietary guidelines?
Yes.
The food pyramid. What would people
yes.
To reduce red meat specifically?
Yes.
People who are convicted in prison, like the Boston Marathon bombers on death row, people who are convicted of sexual assault, they should be able to vote?
I think we should have that conversation. We have to have a buyback program, and I support a mandatory buyback program.
So for people out there who like their insurance, well, they don't get to keep it.
Let's eliminate all of that. Let's move on.
I am opposed to any policy that would deny any human being public health, period.
The more people get to know her, they're going to be particularly impressed by her ability.
We did it, Joe.
Wow, that is and the visual is even more powerful. That is a Dave McCormick ad, ladies and gentlemen. Guy running for Senate in Pennsylvania against Bob Casey, senator from Pennsylvania. And if you'd told me that was an RNC ad, I would stand up and applaud. It wasn't. It was unique to. Now, I don't know. Maybe the RNC put that together for McCormick, and maybe they're stitching every Democrat senator's name to that very same ad. That would work too. I mean, in my opinion, you plug in every Democrat senator running this fall, endorsing her, and then that montage is powerful. Defining who this woman is and explaining to the people who she is, why she's never been popular, how radically left she is, how she will continue these destructive policies is the most important thing. As I explained yesterday, allowing this to become this oversimplified argument of she's a DEI hire is a stupid line of attack. I'm glad to see Republicans agree with me on this. I typically would not trumpet the fact that California Kevin is out there saying the same. Typically, if California Kevin is saying the same thing I say, then now I get a little nervous that maybe I need to revisit my thoughts. But I'm not wrong on this. He's not wrong on this. The Republicans generally are all out there telling one another, knock it off with the race gender stuff. Like, we're not going to win it. Don't get baited into it. They're trying this. They did this with Obama. If there's no record or a radical left-wing record, which is what they both have, but hers is more pronounced than his, they will drag us all into you just don't like the black person. And we ought not take the bait. There is too much, as that ad just laid out, to go after her about that does not involve talking about her race or her gender. Here's California Kevin.
About something we're already starting to hear, again, mainly from some of your former House colleagues who have been attacking Harris. They've been calling her a DEI vice president. A lot of people already think that attack line is racist. Are you confident that your party and Donald Trump can stay on the other side of the line and not delve into racially charged or racist attacks on a black female
I would
candidate?
say two attacks I've heard Republicans give that are totally stupid and dumb to do is the DEI attack. Okay? The other attack that I would not do is saying that the president has to resign.
Interesting.
That would be an advantage for Kamala. Air Force One is very powerful when it lands somewhere. And you know what? Something will happen between now and the election, a hurricane or something else, and she'll be able to present herself as a leader. Or maybe there's some foreign policy. That is a mistake for any leader to go out and say that on the Republican side. This DEI, that seems like a petty. Look, I disagree with DEI, but she is the vice president of the United States. She is the former U.S. senator. These congressmen that are saying it, they're wrong in their own instance.
All right.
Yeah. He's right to point it out. Now, I can hear you, and I've gotten the messages because you are correct. As a historical matter of fact, Joe Biden was on the record and has said, as a historical matter of fact, he is not going to choose a vice president based on qualification. He was going to select a vice president who was a black woman. That is what he said. By definition, he did say that. He promised the Democrats when he was nominated that he was going to pick a black woman. He also said the same thing about the Supreme Court justice. He was very committed to coming out specifically and saying, I am picking a black woman. Now, is it a matter of fact and record that is what was said, which then does that make Ketanji Jackson Brown a DEI hire in her own way, as well as Cackle Britches? By definition, yeah. What is DEI? Diversity, equity, inclusion. This entire construct was created and introduced in school districts, in corporate boardrooms, with the idea of expressly overlooking anyone who was not black or not of color. It was developed to expressly look past anyone who was white, woman, man, qualified or otherwise. Dismiss and ignore whites, specifically go out and look for people with brown skin and a certain gender, in this case, woman, and hire based only on that. So I understand why so many of you are frustrated that you don't like being told by people like me and California Kevin not to go there. Because it's true. It is, but it's not necessary. They want us there. They want us talking about her like she doesn't deserve this job. And you say, she doesn't. And I say, I know, but that's not what they're going to tell all of their constituents. That's not the story that's going to be told to everybody that's not paying attention to this like you and me. And there are millions of people not paying attention like you and me. So I say again, gently and with caution, you're animated and you're angry and your blood pressure is through the roof because you pay attention to this stuff. You have to remember we're not talking to you and me. We're talking to millions of people that don't know who this woman is yet, and they're going to buy hook, line, and sinker the Hollywood production of who she is. And by the time they're swallowed, they've swallowed that presentation, they will look at white dudes, Republicans, shouting, she's just a DEI hire. And they're going to go, well, I saw that really nice commercial that talked about how wonderful she was and historic and important, and she was the vice president, and you're reducing her to that? And you'll get blamed for it. They'll call you the bigot. They'll say you're just a sexist and a racist who's discounting. You're uncomfortable with a black woman being in charge. That's all you are, you angry white cracker, you. Millions of people will be tricked into that if we're allowed, if we allow ourselves to debase the argument. This ad from Dave McCormick is the way. Explaining who she is the way. The audio of years and years of her is the way. Like, for instance, what she said about 18 to 24-year-olds on tape that was floating around yesterday. This is something that Republicans should make an ad out of today and run in all 50 states perpetually.
And it's a specific phase of life. Remember, age is more than a chronological fact. What else do we know about this population, 18 through 24? They are stupid. That is why we put them in dormitories, and they have a resident assistant. They make really bad decisions. You make that a TikTok ad, an Instagram Reels ad, and you run the hell out of that. You run that, listen to me, you run that everywhere. I don't care how much money it takes, make that a social media ad and carpet bomb the country with that clip. We don't need to talk about race and gender. She said enough stupid stuff like that to bury her without you and I having to lift a finger. As long as we do this smart, and to Dave McCormick's team, I say, brilliant, bravo, tour de force. Never thought I'd point to a Pennsylvania Republican's candidacy as the exemplary model of how to do something, but in this case, bravo. Hey, just in case you were wondering where our friends and sponsors at gulagamerica.com stand in this upcoming election, given their very name, Gulag America, what is it? That's a reaction to government collusion with media to silence and jail opponents. I can assure you Gulag America stands squarely with you and me and President Trump. I hope you'll visit their election headquarters tab at gulagamerica.com. They have a brand new selection there to get you geared up for the months ahead. You're going to find MAGA gear and other election-themed material, including a really cool recent addition that's very subtle. It's a clenched right fist, an American flag, and the text, "If you F with Trump, you F with me." And don't forget, Gulag America is offering pre-inflation, pre-branding pricing, just $24 for the standard T-shirts all year long, just $24, and take an additional 10% off your entire order with the promo code Chris10. Now that lets them know you listen to the show, which I really appreciate, but better still, it saves you money. So when you're shopping at gulagamerica.com, again, use that promo code Chris10 at Gulag America, where they say it's not our wish, it is our warning. Well, if you haven't noticed, inflation is still at a 40-year high. The stock market looks more uncertain than ever. And a new central bank digital currency is on the way. That could be the government's ultimate surveillance tool against Americans. It seems like the government is playing games with your savings and retirement. And so what do you do to help protect yourself? Did you know you can put physical gold and silver into an IRA or a 401k with zero taxes or penalties? Millions of Americans are doing it right now.
And you should consider it, too, if you want to preserve and protect your wealth. And there's only one company that I would recommend to you to do that. It's a company called Preserve Gold. Now, they'll go over all your options and make the process of acquiring precious metals easy and simple. So if you're looking to help protect your retirement with a trustworthy company, request your free investment guide from the experts at Preserve Gold. Preserve Gold is accredited with the Better Business Bureau. They have hundreds of 5-star reviews, so you know you're in good hands. Just text Stigall to 50505. Again, text Stigall, my last name, Stigall, to 50505 and get an exclusive offer for everybody that's tuned into this show. You're going to get up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualifying purchase or a retirement account rollover. Yeah, that's huge. Don't wait. Text my name, Stigall, to 50505 today. Get your free gold and silver investment guide and take that first step. Again, that's Stigall, Stigall. Text it to 50505 and get your free guide from the good people at Preserve Gold. 92% of Cacklebridge's staff left her in the first 3 years as vice president. This is another bit of information that I think we should not ignore. Coming from Monroe Harless at the Federalist, Cacklebridge's office has had a staggering 91.5% turnover rate since she became vice president. Government watchdog organization called Open the Books revealed Monday of the 47 staff members hired when Harris took office in 2021, only 4 remained in her employment as of March 2024. The report comes as Biden's X account announced he will stand down from his re-election campaign and fully support Harris as the new nominee. Open the Books utilized U.S. Senate disclosures to obtain records from the vice president's office, including 2021 and 2024 payrolls. The founder of Open the Books says chaos reigns on the vice president's staff. Our auditors at Open the Books quantified an extraordinarily high 91.5% staff turnover rate. Payrolls provide further insight into the staff exodus into Harris's office. The Atlantic, back in October of 2023, reported Harris's communications director, national security advisor, chief of staff, and numerous aides all left within a year and a half of her taking office. Now listen to that list again. Her communications director, national security advisor, her chief of staff, and numerous aides all bailed on her within the first year. Furthermore, the turnover chaos isn't getting any better. In the trailing 12-month period, 24 more staffers left. That's almost half of the people that work for the vice president's office. What does that tell you? Remember Mommy Dearest, Minnesota Nice, Amy Klobuchar? Remember her? She was America's mom, and their staff came forward and said she throws books at their head. And she screams at them when they don't bring her a fork for her salad. And she's, never mind, I'll just eat my salad with a comb, and then you're going to go wash the comb, you scumbag. Then throw something at their head. Miss Minnesota Nice. They're all fakes. These Democrats are phony as the day is long. And I'll tell you what, here's what Republicans also ought to do. They ought to do what Democrats always do. Why don't we go out and start recruiting some of these malcontent Harris staffers? They always do it to us, don't they? They always put some ex-Trump White House staffer on cable news where they tell their story of the things they saw and how. Why don't we have one Democrat willing to do that? Isn't there one, don't you suppose, if you throw enough money at them? Yes, I worked for her and she threw things at my head. Or, wow, she's woefully incompetent and we tried so hard to write speeches for her, help her stay on track, but she's a disaster. We just couldn't get her to say smart things because she's just not particularly smart. We had to practice with her. She's so awkward that we had to practice dinner parties with her because she didn't know what to say or how to behave. True story that came from Axios. Oh, we're going to be treated to a showbiz treatment of this woman. Oh, she is not what they are going to tell everybody she is. You got Alyssa Milano out there yesterday. I'm crying ugly tears. Oh, remember Drew Barrymore last year? That weird, we need a mamala. We need a mamala. You're going to have all the Hollywood ladies now. Oh, God, isn't it beautiful? Sisterhood, she's one of us. People closest to her are bailing on her in droves. They don't like her. They don't respect her. She's known for being vicious and not nice. And quite frankly, folks, she's just not intelligent. I mean, it's just a matter of record. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She says ridiculous things. She talks in circles. That's why every word she's going to utter going forward is scripted. It will all be written, probably by Barack Obama's top speech writers. Everything about this woman from here to November is going to be showbiz production. She will probably, here's another guess, she will probably never be left to speak off the record, or off a prompter, I should say, ever again. I would suspect you will never see her take a presser. I think the calculation is now we know exactly who she is and what she isn't. We know that when she's talking candidly, she nervously laughs with that cackle. We know that when she talks candidly, she talks in circles and creates word salads. So everyone, listen to me. I want cackle britches on prompter, on script, at all times. No interviews, no nervous laughing, no meandering circular word salads. Everything on script, everything on prompter. Fast Eddie, that's what they're doing with her now.
Would you do anything different?
No.
I mean,
you know, there are a few people, and Scott Adams is one, that's been floating out video of her asking, is she drunk? Does she have a drinking problem? Seriously, like not ha ha ha, but there are a few videos out there of her, and you watch it now, and you can't really see anything else. In fact, I'm going to send this one to you because this was something that I was watching last night just before bed, and I never even entertained it before. But Scott Adams sent out like 2 or 3 different clips of moments that she has been speaking publicly over the last couple of years. And if you said, hey, watch this lady, she's drunk and she's trying to give a serious policy speech, you'd go, oh my gosh, she really is. But you don't watch the vice president of the United States speaking publicly and imagine them being alcoholics, do you? You don't imagine it. You think, well, you don't even allow your head to go there. But if you actually listen to her speaking in some capacities, you say to yourself, maybe, possibly.
Never let anyone take your joy from you. I call myself a joyful warrior. Right? Never let anyone take your joy from you. You do what you gotta do. And isn't that a wonderful way to live? To know you have purpose. Never let anyone take your joy from you.
Right. Now, I mean, if there was a woman you were seated next to in a bar, Fast Eddie, and she leaned into you and said that, would you go, whoa, let me call you an Uber, right?
Absolutely. And Christian, if the visual obviously is worse. She's like holding the mic sideways.
Yeah.
And just kind of like.
And that's not the only one. There are others. There are 2 or 3 of them that Scott Adams posted yesterday. I was like, whoa. I mean, I can't prove it. Of course, how can we know? But does that not sound like a woman that has had a little too much? Harris puts Democrat Party's backbone front and center. Black women. This from Axios. Vice President Harris's sudden presidential candidacy is quickly galvanizing a massive and politically powerful network of black women that have long been described as the backbone of the Democrat Party. About 93% of black women who voted in 2020 supported Biden. Well, we know that. Within hours of Sunday's bombshell announcement, more than 90,000 tuned in to a call organized by hashtag Win with Black Women to support Harris. That's the hashtag out there, Win with Black Women. They raised $1.5 million in 3 hours. Well, that may be, but Black Lives Matter doesn't feel the same. Black Lives Matter demanded yesterday that the DNC immediately host an informal virtual snap primary across the country prior to the DNC convention next month, just hours after Cackle Bridges secured enough delegates for the nomination. Secured enough delegates. I love how we talk about this like this is all legitimate. Like she did anything. In a statement, really, she's done nothing. Can we just back up? Let me just back away again. She's done nothing. She's actually not achieved any of this herself. Okay? I mean, let's be truthful with one another. What has she achieved? Literally. Tell me. Can you? And I'm sincerely asking you, I challenge you, $100 bill if you can name for me what has this woman achieved on her own in the last 4 years. Can you name it? And that includes being vice president and now being the nominee of the Democrat Party. Has she achieved any of this on her own? Think of it. Anyway, the statement from Black Lives Matter says, quote, the current political landscape is unprecedented, with President Biden stepping aside in a manner never seen before. This moment calls for decisive action to protect the integrity of our democracy and the voices of black voters. Well, Axios just told us she's the backbone of black women. Why would Black Lives Matter be saying they're not happy with this outcome when Axios just told us every black woman in the country is ecstatic about her? One of those can't be true. Which is it, do you suppose? The Black Lives Matter people or Axios? Just asking. Furthermore, notice what we're not talking about? When we're talking about black folks, we're not talking about black men. I've seen some interviews with black men on the street about this woman. Oh, my. Check it out. Go do some digging about what some black men who know about Kamala Harris, what they have to say about her, particularly in California. We already know that Trump is making massive inroads with black men in this country as it was. The polls were already suggesting black men were turning their backs on the Democrat Party anyway. I maintain, maybe they're leaning into this lady thing. It's all estrogen all day long. Black women, fine. Okay. And there are more registered women out there than there are men. And so as a strategic mathematical issue, maybe that's smart. Maybe that's their play. We know that women turn out. We're going to make this all about abortion and women and glass ceilings and history. And maybe they will just gin up and excite the low-info women in this country enough that they will just swamp the vote. Maybe. I'm not making any predictions. I can't know. But I do know this. Black men are going the other direction. Men in this country generally are going in another direction. The fight will be in the females. The fight will be with the women. That is where this fight will be had. There's just no getting around it. And so I say to the women in this audience, your counsel on this and the way forward on this, it's going to be on your shoulders a little bit. Because, it's interesting. Our friend Christine Flowers, I saw her just yesterday on social media saying she rejects, I don't know that she was necessarily speaking to me, but she said that generally she rejects people saying not to, quote, hit the girl, meaning don't get too rough on her as a woman. We got to be careful with her because she's a woman. And Christine said, women give birth. Women are tough. Women can take it. Don't pander. Punch her just as hard as you'd punch any other guy. Punch her as hard as you'd punch the husk or Obama or any other Democrat. No reason to pull punches. That's Christine's take. Now, Christine's kind of a unique lady. I'm not sure I agree. I'm not a woman. But that's Christine's point. She says, don't pander to women. Hit her where it hurts. I'm all for hitting Kamala Harris on her record. She has one. We've played it. She's drunk and babbling and a mess. She's achieved nothing. She's jailed black men for tiny little drug crimes. Her record is abysmal. We got a wide open border. She's destructive as hell. She has to answer for every Biden policy. She's been part of this. She's covered up this infirm old husk's destruction of this country for the last 3.5 years. There's plenty to prosecute Kamala Harris about. The gender thing is going to be their play. I fall in the camp of saying I don't know that we need to spend a lot of time talking about her as a woman or black. I don't think it's relevant. I don't think it has anything to do with anything. So it's interesting to me that Black Lives Matter is out there saying we want a virtual primary. Don't hand this to Cackle Bridges. We're not necessarily anti-Cackle Bridges, but we don't like that she's just being christened. We think there's somebody better out there, perhaps. I also want you to consider what seems to be increasingly clear, that they're going to go with Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, as her VP pick. It's Again, not promising, not betting, but it's seeming that way. If I'm watching the activity of little Josh, he's doing all the, look at me, I'm hip, I'm on TikTok, and I'm on Instagram, and I'm making all the cute little reels. He's desperate to prove how cool he is and how moderate he is. And they keep saying that they need a boring white guy who's moderate to even her out. That's what I keep hearing. Does Josh want the gig? Well, I've said that if Josh concludes she can't win, I don't believe he wants this. He's content to stay there and continue to shape and craft his perfect candidacy so that in 4 years it will be his chance and his time. Or even 8 years, he's willing to wait. He's a younger guy. Or he thinks she's going to win, and this is enough. This is enough, and he's going to hitch his wagon to her. Now, historically speaking, it's pretty rare that a vice president becomes president someday. So Josh Shapiro is basically saying, I've hit my ceiling. This may be as high as I can climb. This is as good as it gets, so I'll take the Veep slot. I don't believe that's in the marrow of Josh Shapiro. I believe Josh Shapiro has wanted to be president. He will stop at nothing until he becomes president, and that's why I have a hard time believing he's just going to slide in behind this woman who is an abject failure politically, who has a lot of negatives, and at this hour in polling seems to be neck and neck with Trump. It's not like she went surging ahead of him. She's raised a lot of money because famous people and Hollywood people have dumped a lot of money. It was so funny yesterday. This is a movement of the people. This is a movement solely created of billionaire donors in Hollywood. You're not a movement of the people. So does Josh hitch his wagon to her? It's a gamble, isn't it? I mean, you're going to the casino with this one. Not that she won't win or can't win, and maybe she does, but if she does, then let's just say, if you're Josh, you're calculating for the next 8 years, potentially, I will be her vice president. Is that the way little Josh wants to go? Does that benefit him more than staying Pennsylvania governor and waiting his turn to go for it all? Now, think, you're the most ambitious Democrat in the country, and you've just become governor of a premier state like Pennsylvania. Does it make sense for you politically to hitch your wagon to her and be her number two, even if she has ultimate success and is president for the next 8 years? Are you better off being her number two and waiting your turn for 8 years? Or are you better off being the much beloved rising star governor of Pennsylvania in the Democrat ranks and waiting for your turn to shine on the national stage when your opportunity comes? Thinking that maybe there's a strong possibility she's defeated. So think like Josh for a minute, Fast Eddie. What do you do?
If I'm Josh Shapiro, I would calculate that she would lose this election, and then the Democrats would win big in the next election, giving him the prime spot for an 8-year run.
He goes out there and does everything he can to help her win, and she loses. He's still a hero. He goes out there and does everything he helps her to win, and she wins. He's relegated to vice president, and that's vice presidents are vice presidents. And typically, they wind up on the ash heap of political history. There are very few people that write biographies about vice presidents. Is that where little Josh wants to stop his career? The number two behind the historic first black woman? Do you think? I mean, seriously, and he's thinking about that too. History. Well, wait, I'm the first Jewish vice president. He'll peep up or something. Yeah, but you're a white guy. Sit down and shut up. You're the number two. You'll always be number two. This is as far as you go. This is where you get off, Josh. I don't believe it. I just don't believe that's in Shapiro's marrow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I understand completely.
So I think he wins either way. But, I mean, if in fact that's as high as he wants to climb, I maintain he wants to look like he is doing everything he can to bring Pennsylvania home for her. And maybe he does. Maybe Pennsylvania goes to her. Maybe she loses, maybe she wins. But either way, he'll look fantastic, won't he? His profile's raised. He did his part. He gets excrement done in Pennsylvania, although you can actually name what he's done. He says that all the time. I get excrement done. What's he done? What can he say he's done? Like Ron DeSantis. If you asked Ron DeSantis, what excrement did you get done? Ron could tick down a list that would take you a few hours probably. I mean, we have tangible things. I don't even live in Florida, and I know what Ron DeSantis has done. Physical things he's done. What has Josh Shapiro done? Fixed a federal highway with the Biden administration's help? What's he done? I get excrement done. Right. Also, he's Jewish. I bring that up only because Benjamin Netanyahu is visiting the United States. Did you see how he was greeted yesterday? Did you see the Jew haters, the Kamala Harris voters, the Jew-hating Kamala Harris voters that showed up in the rotunda yesterday, protesting Netanyahu's visit, screaming and yelling that he ought not be heard? And she, by the way, is not going to go see his speech. She will not sit in the chamber and be seen visually with Benjamin Netanyahu. She'll have a private meeting with him, but she will not be seen visually with him. So the anti-Semites that run the Democrat Party have chased her out of sitting down publicly with Benjamin Netanyahu. They've taken over the Capitol. And so you're Josh and you're Jewish, and you're going to hitch your wagon to that. That's another thing to consider. Do you want to throw yourself in the anti-Semite fire of the Democrat Party? Serious question. I think if you're Josh Shapiro, you have to be thinking about it. And I think the Harris people are thinking about it too.
At the very heart of our democracy lies a principle we hold sacred, and that's free speech. It's the cornerstone that supports every freedom we cherish, allowing ideas to flourish, debates to ignite, and progress to be made. Without it, our pursuit of liberty, our ability to challenge, or our capacity to innovate, it would be really constrained. Now, in today's digital age, the very platform that should democratize information is being allowed to narrow the spectrum of ideas we're exposed to. Really important discussions about our wealth, our rights, our future, systemically silenced or overshadowed in mainstream narratives, leaving many feeling voiceless in conversations that are really crucial to your financial independence and your security. And that's where the company Wealth Protection Research steps in. They're armed with a mission that's never been more critical. Wealth Protection Research is not a financial advisory firm. I want to be clear about that. They're defenders of free speech. They're committed to giving a voice to the silenced. In an era where dialogues about retirement, investments, economic freedoms are increasingly censored, Wealth Protection Research is focused on ensuring that diverse, controversial, and revolutionary ideas also get a platform. Wealth Protection Research tirelessly seeks out financial experts through leaders and thought leaders, trailblazers, all who've been pushed to the margins by mainstream media and tech platforms like Facebook and Google. These are the voices that challenge prevailing narratives, offering fresh, often contrarian perspectives on protecting and growing your wealth, especially as we navigate the uncertainties of this coming election. By spotlighting these thinkers, people like Jim Rickards or Porter Stansberry, Wealth Protection Research is not just sharing financial advice, they're fostering a movement toward a more open, informed, and free society. Wealth Protection Research has created a 2024 Election Wealth Protection Report, and it's a completely free report. It highlights the 3 best ideas for protecting and growing your money heading into the 2024 election, and it also contains ideas the mainstream media doesn't want to touch. Listeners to this show can get this whole thing completely free if you text the word ideas to 76626. Just text ideas to 76626, and if you do that today, you're also going to get a free gold investment kit from Wealth Protection Research. And the sponsor of that is Augusta Precious Metals, by the way, and we appreciate that. So just text ideas to 76626. If you're like me and you believe in the sanctity of free speech and the importance of financial freedom, act now. Text ideas to 76626. Claim your free copy of this 2024 election report. You know, it's time to widen the scope of what we're told. You know we believe that here. Hear the ideas that establishment folks can't handle and don't think you can handle. Take control of your own financial destiny. Text ideas to 76626 to claim your free copy. The battle for free speech is the battle for our future, and Wealth Protection Research ensures that the ideas capable of shaping our financial well-being are available to all of us who want to hear them. So don't wait. Grab your free report right now. Text ideas to 76626 and claim your free copy.
You never call home, where they turned out your life.
She has quite literally been in the center of this chaotic last not quite month. Salena Zito is the national political reporter at the Washington Examiner. You likely saw as the coverage was unfolding of the assassination attempt at Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. You likely saw that Salena was there. She's been doing a lot of interviews about this. She was right there front
and center when Secret Service, there were pictures of her, agents piling on her to protect her from gunfire. She had conducted an interview with Donald Trump. And so, I mean, there was nobody closer to this story in Butler, Pennsylvania as a member of the media than Salena Zito was. From the Washington Examiner and all her stories, everything she writes, and she's constantly churning out great stuff at salenazito.com. Salena, first of all, I know you've done a lot of interviews and talked with a lot of folks since, and some time has passed, but we're very grateful you're okay. That was a cold reminder of, how quickly someone's life can be taken, as we saw with Corey, of course. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much. There was so many series of reasons why I shouldn't have been standing where I was standing. As the morning unfolded to the afternoon to the moment that I was standing a few feet away from the president. And any journalist will tell you, nothing had gone as planned, and you kind of have to roll with that. I was initially supposed to interview President Trump 10 minutes before the rally. That changed then to after the rally. That then changed to a text that said the president would like you to fly with him to Bedminster and do the interview from Butler. And then that didn't change, but I was supposed to stay in the press riser along with my photographer, which happened to be my daughter. She's a photojournalist, and I had my son-in-law along with us because it was a very, very hot day. I wanted him to be able to carry the equipment so that the three of us at least wouldn't be overburdened with carrying things and like drenched in sweat by the time we interviewed the president. And 6 minutes before he's set to go on, the advance guy, and by the way, it was his press advance guy that was on top of me protecting me.
Okay.
So I want to give great kudos to Michelle Picard for doing that. The president, they said, hey, it's go time. I thought, okay, things have changed again. I'm going to interview him now. So we were, rushed up to behind the stage area in a holding room, and turns out, I wasn't supposed to interview him then. Things hadn't changed. He just wanted to say hi. I've interviewed the president almost that would have been the 10th time. And, he just wanted to say, hey, great to be in Pennsylvania. Looking forward to our interview on the way back. And that was that. Because we were now then in close proximity to where the motorcade was and leaving to go to the airport, they said, just stay here in the buffer. And we said, oh, okay. So we're in the buffer with all of our equipment. We go around with all the other photojournalists. There were 4 or 5 others. And as we're going around in the buffer, we go off to his left. Most of them are center and to his right, which is why they got the amazing photos. And while my daughter is taking photos, he does 2 things he never does. He goes all Ross Perot and brings down a chart, right? And
wow.
For those of us old enough to remember Ross Perot always had a chart,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
Donald Trump never has a chart.
No.
And his relationship with the crowd is always very transactional. He faces them. He feeds off of them. They feed off of him. He never turns away from them. He may turn his body to face a different portion of the crowd, but he never turns his head away. And in that moment, he brings a chart down. He turns his head, pop, pop, pop. Goes right past my daughter, my son-in-law, and I. Oh. I knew immediately what it was. I hear a second set of pops. My son-in-law drops on top of my daughter. I drop on top of both of them. And then the advance guy just throws his body on top of all of us to keep us safe.
Wow. And do you ever stop to process
that something like that could happen in covering high-profile people like Donald Trump, or did it now for the first time become a reality now that you've experienced that? How have you processed all that professionally, just personally?
You're always situationally aware when you're a reporter. It's just part of your job. You look for detail. You look for nuance. You look for something different, right? So I'm always looking. And, there's always that in the back of your mind. But here's the thing about rallies. In particular, Trump rallies. They're sort of like a Jimmy Buffett sponsor, except nobody has a parrot shirt on.
Yeah.
But everyone is pretty joyful.
Yes.
They're happy, right?
Yep.
They're with people that are like-minded, and they're part of something bigger than themselves. And that's very much, if you've ever been to a Buffett rally or Chris what's the Matthews Band, the Dave Matthews Band, it's all that sense of, hey, we all like the same thing. And so, it is a little more, when you're at a rally, you're a little more, caught up in the detail of the joy, but you're always sort of looking at people. You're always sort of wondering.
So with the announcement of the Secret Service head stepping down, the Secret Service immediately comes out after that and says, hey, Trump, no more outdoor rallies. What do you think of that?
I understand why. I think there's a lot of blame to go around in the Secret Service. However, I think that goes in leadership and not the men and women on the ground. Those men and women that were there, their bodies were protecting him within milliseconds. And for people that are criticizing the size of the females, well, I understand there were plenty of tall people there, right, protecting him. But these women were facing outward and ready to take a bullet. So I'm a little, and they didn't even hesitate. So I think that the concern probably comes from the rank and file, right? That they're like, our job is to protect him. And right now, we just want to protect.
And not to make it about this, because, of course, protecting lives is the most important thing. But I do wonder, does telling this campaign no more outdoor rallies, is that not, you just described what a joyful, powerful thing it is. We've all seen the pictures. You've been to countless numbers of these, so have I. It feels like you're taking away an important element of what the Trump campaign is. Am I reading too much into that?
I think it's temporary. I doubt that it will go on. I think there just is a reassessment going on within law enforcement.
Yeah.
I don't think that this will continue.
Okay.
As with anything in American culture, we tend to overreact and then we wind back and get back to where we were.
Okay, I have got 1,000 questions to ask you, and because you're just you're in the middle of all of it, I'm going to try to truncate this into. Everybody is now looking at Josh Shapiro as the pick, and I guess I want to know, because you live in Pennsylvania, you know Pennsylvania politics. Not a week ago, John Fetterman, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago tops, John Fetterman, Josh Shapiro, and Bob Casey were all smiles and locked arms at a campaign event with Joe Biden. John Fetterman was obstinate. He was riding with Biden. And like on a dime, everything switched, and now it's all smiles, and we're all in for Kamala Harris, and maybe Josh Shapiro is going to be her Veep pick. Salena, I don't care what anybody thinks politically about anybody. This is bonkers. We've never been here. What is this whipsaw? How do you read it, Salena Zito?
Look, Shapiro, Fetterman, Casey, we're always going to stand shoulder to shoulder for Biden, whether it was to their best advantage or not. I think the only person who had the most to lose doing that was Casey, because he's up for re-election. It didn't, with Shapiro and Fetterman, They just got elected, so there was less risk. In terms, and now with Vice President Harris, I think, again, the biggest risk is for Bob Casey. He has been intrinsically tied with Joe Biden. They grew up on the same North Washington Avenue street. Their families have been intertwined since Joe Biden would fundraise with his father in the is that 80s or 90s? I don't even know. And in the 90s. And so I think for Casey, his really big challenge is she is very left of Biden. Biden had already been tugged left over the past 3 years, but she is fully further left than Biden, and and she is against hydraulic fracturing. She has said unequivocally, if she was president, she would ban it on day one. Now let's just think about that for a second. That's not just the men and women, the blue-collar men and women working in the industry, right? We've got 130,000 of them. Then we have geologists, chemists, engineers, IT specialists, all of those people in the C-suites whose jobs are then impacted. Not to mention the farmers whose farms have had a rebirth because of the leases that they received from the natural gas. And then we're not even talking about the hydrogen plant that's going up in your end of the state, which is $1 billion investment into, I think that's Chester County.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So he's going to be very challenged to stand shoulder to shoulder with her because of the importance. Shapiro has been pro-fracking. He hasn't been against it. I'm really challenged to believe that he will be the vice president.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. I have, and Salena Zito is with us, by the way, again. She's the Washington Examiner national politics reporter. She's at salenazito.com for everything she writes. So 2 things about this. Number 1, Dave McCormick and that campaign, I'm sure you've seen it already, they came out with just a blistering ad to this very point you just made, tying Bob Casey to all of the very, very left of center positions that Kamala Harris has taken. His was the first, to my knowledge. I mean, it looked like a national campaign ad. It was really what it looked like to me, but it was very much directed at Bob Casey. That intrigued me. And then number 2, sorry, I'm throwing a lot at you at once, but I'm excited. Shapiro, I'm fascinated with, because to me, like you just said, I don't know what we all know his ambitions. He's one of the most ambitious, forward-looking politicians there is. I don't see the upside to him hopping in political bed with her, personally. So that's a lot. Take it away, Salena Zito.
Well, I agree with you. Josh Shapiro has a bright future. You have to remember that he won our state by almost 20 percentage points. Mm-hmm. A lot of his voters are Trump voters, right? He has a unique political or governing style that he and if you check out my interview with him last week, he shares a couple qualities with Trump in that they know where to show up. They know how to see the unseen, the people who feel left behind.
Instincts.
It is something that Republicans and Democrats have lost and used to do very well. And Shapiro and Trump just have a great intuition in doing that, and a great compassion in doing that, right? And they also, Josh has that get blank done, sort of mode. What's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah.
Thank you. Right? So does Trump.
Yeah.
So to me, to me, having covered Shapiro forever and having understood his unique talents, I think that it would not be the best idea for him to jump into chaos. While he rises to the occasion in chaotic things that happen, think I-95, right?
Yep.
Think about when that I think it was in Berks County, when that candy store or that candy factory collapsed, right? Boom, he's right there. East Palestine, boom, he's right there. He shows up and he gets things done. He calls Norfolk Southern to the carpet for what happened in East Palestine. So he has this sort of great approval rating in our state. And I think that once the sugar high runs off of Vice President Harris being picked, that it is not in his best interest to be attached to this chaos.
Yeah, they can. The Harris people can tap into him and use him, I think, effectively in Pennsylvania without making him the Veep pick. He then has to consider, I'm going to be her number 2, potentially for 8 years, best case scenario, and worst case scenario, she goes down in flames. And I don't think he wants that for himself. I think he aspires to more, and he thinks he doesn't need her to do it.
Shapiro is a very aspirational character, a politician, governor. He has a great future ahead of him. He is not a good match with her ideological worldview. And neither is, and Harris is not a good match for Pennsylvania. I mean, as one Democrat in Western Pennsylvania said, oh, she's going to run 4 points behind Hillary in my area.
Oh, wow.
Because she is further, he said she is much further left than Hillary ever was. And you know, former chairman of the state party, T.J. Rooney, said, you know, people will say, people that say that it's about race and gender. No, he said they voted for Barack Obama. They voted for Hillary Clinton. This is about world view and how she views the world. And it doesn't jive with the Democrats that live in places like Beaver County.
Last thing on this Shapiro thing, and then I'll move off of him. The fact that he is Jewish, is that a consideration when you see literally today and yesterday all of the pro-Palestinian protesting and the anger directed at Netanyahu? I mean, doesn't that put them in a weird spot with that left-wing flank that's been taking over college campuses and all of that?
I mean, I'm sort of stunned. Wasn't Joe Lieberman, Al Gore's vice presidential pick?
Yes.
And it is so stunning to me how much the Democrat Party has changed.
Yes.
So much.
Yes.
In terms of just the slide, sort of dark, anti-Jewish remarks that sometimes are not blatant, but the inference there is a little bit stunning to me.
Do you think that's a consideration? Do you think Harris would be considering that in talking about a Shapiro pick?
Geez, I don't know. I can't get inside her head.
Yeah.
But by the way, if it is, shame on her.
Yeah. I do.
Shame on anybody that thinks that, because Josh Shapiro is an incredible example of a throwback Democrat, that understands the importance of governing.
Yeah.
And if his faith or religion is a consideration as to not pick him, again, I don't think he's going to take it. I don't have any inside track, but it's just gut. I think that's shameful.
Do you have that John King clip, Ed? Could you find that quickly from earlier in the week? John King saying, I think it was Monday we had this, just because it's right at these folks when they talk about him and who she's considering. I was like you. I was kind of amazed that it was just offered up as sort of a casual observation on Anderson Cooper's show by John King that they've got to consider him being Jewish. Listen to this, Salena.
Pennsylvania's Governor Josh Shapiro is being discussed as one of Harris's potential running mates. He also endorsed her tonight. In your view, what are the pros and cons for putting him on the ticket?
Well, he's certainly under consideration. I know that from key Harris allies. He's a first-term governor. He's Jewish. There could be some risks in putting him on the ticket, but certainly some of our voters here in Pennsylvania said, hey, we like Governor Shapiro. Give him a look. Also told
I mean, just threw it out there casually, silly. What?
Too many tickets. I mean, okay, I'm elderly, right? I grew up with uncles who served in World War II. And who liberated people from concentration camps. I grew up Catholic. We were taught to respect Israel and the Jewish people. I cannot wrap my head around that.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I cannot wrap my head out anybody even saying that out loud.
Salena Zito is the national political reporter at the Washington Examiner, salenazito.com. So, you have, I mean, you know, everyone calls you, particularly about Pennsylvania. I mean, you're brilliant politically anyway, but Pennsylvania, you know, like the back of your hand. You know the cities, you know the towns, you know the smallest of towns, mid-sized towns, every county. And you were the one who famously saw Trump coming on when nobody else did. How do you read the dynamic of Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump now, and how does it play in Pennsylvania? Besides the obvious Allegheny and Philadelphia and Collar counties, I mean, how does it play out there in the other parts of the Commonwealth people don't like to talk about or cover like you do?
Well, I think it plays no different than Hillary versus Trump.
Really?
I think Harris has a challenge, and I suspect. You know, everyone was making a big deal about the big crowd she got in Milwaukee last night. There were 3,000 people there. You don't win an election in Milwaukee. You win an election in Vernon County. You win in Wisconsin. You win an election in Kenosha County. Same with Pennsylvania. You don't win an election in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. Yes, those are the places that have the highest turnout. However, it is the margins in the smaller counties like Erie and Butler and Beaver and Cambria and Northampton and Bucks County, which, by the way, registration just changed from Democrats having more to Republicans having more registered voters. These are the counties that will make it. And the Biden campaign, as well as Harris, have only concentrated on Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. It tells me that they don't understand the voters that they need to win.
And do you think she could, I mean, sincerely, do you think she could go into Berks County or Butler, Pennsylvania and draw flies? I mean, sincerely, I don't know. Maybe she could.
I don't know. Oftentimes, campaigns, bring. It's not like there's not Democrats that don't live there. However, here's the thing: the issues remain the same no matter who's at the top of the ticket. The problem is still a very bad immigration policy. We're not bringing in the immigrants that we need to work in the farms in Berks County and Lancaster and York and Butler and Beaver. But we are allowing illegal immigrants to cross our borders and many of them bringing drugs up from Texas into Akron and straight across into our state and killing young people and old people because of the fentanyl crisis and the meth crisis, and so and inflation. My goodness. I'm still almost paying I'm paying $3.89 a gallon. That's ridiculous. And the cost of food is astronomical. The cost of insurance, health insurance, homeowners insurance, everything is through the roof. And these issues have not been addressed by Biden, and they're not being addressed by Harris. And the other thing is she's going to be the sort of the candidate that talks about abortion. Well, abortion in our state has been legal, not just since Roe, but it has been permanently legal in our state since the 80s. It is legal up into 23 weeks. It cannot be touched unless the Democratic governor and a Democrat majority state house overturns it. That's not going to happen. It didn't happen when we had Republican governors.
Salena Zito always makes a compelling case. We are so grateful for your time. I know everybody's leaning on you right now so that you could make such time for us. Grateful for your perspective. And most of all, sincerely, we're so grateful you and your daughter and son-in-law are safe and well.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.